have a transportation plan. Campo has imposed a plan on us that the document itself says point blank, we're going to spend $35 billion over the next 25 years, and congestion is going to get essentially 10 times worse. I'm not kidding you. This is in the document. Okay? We haven't heard a word about that from our transportation department. They should be shouting from the mountaintops that this is broken and we're going to ignore that regional transportation body and put some innovative, sound transportation planning on the table for Austin. Partner with Travis County, partner with who will partner with us, but put something smart and functional on the table and not this unbelievable admission of failure for our future. No planning, no metrics, no planning, and a failure to provide honest, reliable information, and as Jeff Jack said, options. A few, the example here, most obviously for me, is water treatment plant for number 4. This was a huge strategic investment for the city. It's water future. Water's absolutely critical. It's essential for our future. They put on the table a plant that was enormously expensive, 3 to 5 times more expensive than any other plant of that size that anybody else was looking at building across the country. And they said we had to have it right away. We hadn't updated our water plan, our water supply plan, for over a decade. So normally you plan first and then you spend later. Didn't do that. You do some due diligence and look at options. No options were put on the table. The council was split on this. So here's a huge strategic investment, 30 to 50 year kind of decision. The council split. They need honest, reliable information. The staff was telling them we had to have this right away, or else we weren't going to have sufficient supply, peak management capacity. So everybody uses a lot of water in the summer. You got to hit that peak. You got to have enough capacity to hit the peak. Well, we had solved our peaking problems with conservation and with the 1 day a week watering or 2 day a week watering, spreading everybody out so that you don't have this giant peak in hot August Saturday when everybody's watering at the exact same time. You spread everybody out across the week, which we had already done. You solve the peaking problem with essentially zero money. We had already done that. We didn't need any more treatment capacity. And yet they kept telling us that we had to have more treatment capacity. When we finally sort of shot that down, then they tried to say, oh, it's dangerous to only have 2 water plants. That's unreliable. We have to have redundancy. Something might, go wrong, and then people wouldn't have any water, and it'd be a huge black mark on our city. So we said, okay, this is scary and risky. Show us your risk management report. There was none. There was one risk exercise that the staff did to try to evaluate risk to the system. Not having a 3rd treatment plan was nowhere to be found in the discussion at all whatsoever, and yet that's what they told us. It was terrible. So we spent $1 billion, still don't need the plan. Our all-time record peak day of water use was in August of 2001. We probably won't get there again for a decade or more. We'll never need this plan. If we do, it'll be 30 years from now. By that time, the pipes, the plant itself will have deteriorated to the point of not being worth much. The biomass plant was mentioned, another one on the energy side. That was sold as green energy. The environmental community was the one there screaming that this was really bad. It wasn't green. There was no due diligence. There was no reliable information to say that was a sound investment. The Chamber of Commerce was nowhere to be seen. And council did it because the staff pushed it on them. And
we still get blamed for it, even though we were the loudest people in the room.
Right. So we need a...
No revolts from the audience, please.
Right. We have so many good people that work for the city. This is another big complaint I have. Those people get squelched, they get silenced, they get assigned to menial tasks instead of the most important, challenging tasks that people who in watershed protection have PhDs, have the best knowledge of anybody on protecting vulnerable limestone aquifers that feed our crown jewel, Barton Springs, the life source for the city. But they're not allowed to do and say the right things to council. We had a huge fight last year that a piece of land just above the springs was deemed to not be in the Barton Creek watershed. It was beyond absurd. The staffers, the experts, weren't going to say that. The city manager was telling them they had to say it. We had to fight with Councilmember Morrison for months to get what was just common sense and obvious to be followed. And the Save Our Springs ordinance, approved by the voters, followed. We need a council member who understands we have to pursue affordability and sustainability together. The planet's at a dangerous place. The city manager made a big show a few years ago of creating the Office of Sustainability so that we could reduce our carbon footprint, help solve this global challenge, and be climate resilient. Does anybody know what that office has done?
I haven't heard a thing.
They make nifty signs for their
Do we have a metric for where our carbon footprint is from our transportation sector, from our energy sector? I think we actually do for our, Austin Energy's done pretty well. But transportation is like 40% of our carbon footprint. That's not even part of the discussion. Under my last point, undermining city council policy. We have an Imagine Austin comprehensive plan that the council approved that should be guiding everything we do. I don't think the upper city management ever looks at that plan or cares what it says. The transportation department fought tooth and toenail to put SH 45 Southwest over the aquifer into that plan. And we fought it off time and time again. The final adopted plan says that is not part of our transportation plan and it should not be built. Yet our transportation department is still behind the scenes pushing to build it in direct violation of city council policy, pushing back against council policy on other issues related to MOPAC South. Last May, TxDOT and the Toll Road Agency popped out and said they don't want to just build one toll lane each way like they are building right now north of the river, but from Cesar Chavez across Town Lake through Zilker Park, over the watershed, they want it to be 2 toll lanes each way. This caused great consternation because they showed a big double-decker bridge. So we're trying to bury and take care of this horrible blight on our city called I-35 on the east side of downtown, but we're going to build a second I-35 double-decker on the west side of town. Makes no sense at all. But so the council passed a resolution saying, staff, please bring us a different option to this horrible 4-lane option, 2 toll lanes each way. And it was pretty clear they wanted either a much scaled back version. Staff brought back a 4-lane, 2 each way version that was in many respects worse than the TxDOT scheme. A plan that would require taking of Austin High property, taking of a beautiful section iconic place in Austin, in Zilker Park and over Lady Bird Lake, for essentially a second interstate through I-35. We need a city management that wants to be innovative when it comes to transportation. That's not going to just toe the line for TxDOT. Especially now when we understand that, and the science is overwhelmingly clear, you can add pavement, but what you're doing is you're hurting your human habitat. You're sacrificing your environment, your people space to create horrible car space. And no other city, big city, that is doing that anymore. New York City's added millions of people in the last few years. They've added 0 cars. We have to be innovative in transportation, and we have no innovation whatsoever from our city management and the transportation department. And to the extent we have adopted sound policies in the Imagine Austin plan, they're being ignored or aggressively undermined by city management. So I'm with the Manage Austin Better folks and believe that it's time for new management. Thank you.
Turn it off? Yeah.
We are going to leave here at 8:30.